Hey, welcome back to the basement, and welcome to the American Dream. As a remote student, I want to make sure that you get into Google Classroom and that you get started on the work that we want our students to be doing over the next week while we wait for the freshmen to take their turn for their in-school days. All right, so first thing to do is to get your Chromebook, probably already on it if you're watching this video in your email. But go to Google Classroom and enter the Google Classroom code. I'll put that up on the screen. Head to Classroom, and here is your new classroom. Mr. Gum and I, when we introduced ourselves, we of course didn't introduce ourselves because we know you guys. We had everybody out there we had in Roots of Thought last year. And so, because of that, there's some real expectations here. We know that you have practiced doing this style of work for a whole year. We also know that you did some remote learning with us in the spring as well. So you've elected to continue remote. Expect more of the same. We're of course going to be following those new guidelines, so make sure that you're in the Google Meet at the start of remote blocks. But you've already seen the way that we design our remote lessons with videos like this. Expect more of the same. While I've been talking, I went ahead and put the code up, so if you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video and get yourself signed into the American Dream Classroom, and then I'll give you a tour of the stuff that we've done in class already. Okay, so I'm going to take it down, but of course, remember, pause the video to input this code so that you're in. What we did over the course of 2 days is we read an introduction to the course in the form of a short story called In a Strange Country by Ralph Ellison. We spent some time talking about what it means to say, I am American, and how that's a really unique phrase. It is something that we all know that we could say by being in this country right now, or born in this country. Yet it also is something that escapes definition. For example, this is Mr. Gum's opening exercise. Okay, so you can say, I am an American, but if I told you to draw an American, what would you draw? What does an American look like? Compare that to other countries that you might know. Imagine India, draw an Indian citizen. Imagine China, draw a Chinese citizen. Imagine Japan, draw a Japanese citizen. Now, we shouldn't paint a completely broad brush whenever we think of any country, but I imagine that just hearing those countries that are so strongly linked to a certain ethnicity or culture or religion or background, something popped into your head. But if I say draw an American, well, what pops into your head? And of course, there's two ways to handle that. One thing is to realize, well, that's kind of hard to do because we are a pretty diverse country. Or perhaps an image that looks much like yourself popped into your head. And is that really the truth? So we looked at Ralph Ellison's story, who is a Black author who lived in the 20th century, and he wrote this piece in a Strange Country in 1944, so right smack dab in the timeline that we'll be covering this year. And it works really well for that reason, because not only is it a slice out of some of the content that we'll be studying, the ideas and what it means to be an American for Ralph Ellison, as experienced through his protagonist, Mr. Parker, still true today. So it sets the tone for why we look at American history and why it's something we still have to look at even after you finish the course this year. So to prepare for that, day one of in-class instruction was to do this guidebook. The guidebook has some anticipation assignments that I want you to work through. So the individual work is to define these words. please do not copy and paste the definitions, because often you'll find that if you go ahead and use the definition tool, the definition itself will use some more words, like this one here, evoking, that I'm pretty sure you don't use in everyday life. So don't just copy and paste it and say, okay, now I know the definition of poignant, because you don't know the definition of evoking, so how does that work? So please look at this, look at the synonyms it gives you, and come up with your own definition. These words all appear in the piece. This is an exercise that we did whole class. I ran through the discussion already as my introduction to the piece about what it means when we say I am American and why. It's an interesting phrase and unique to our country that is not the same as the setting of the short story, which takes place in Wales. So Mr. Parker, the protagonist, is a black merchant marine, and he is on shore leave in the country of Wales. And so if you click this link, you'll be taken to a video that gives you an overview of how the United Kingdom is a country that's built a little differently than ours. There's an author biography to read, and then please fill out this. What are some I am statements that Mr. Ellison would identify with? That's going to help you read the story, because Mr. Parker, the protagonist, is very much a fictional version of Ellison's own experience when he himself was a merchant marine. So if you get all those details from his biography, it'll help you read the text. Down here, choral singing features prominently in the story. So if you click these videos, enjoy them. They're pretty good listens and watches, especially Roll the Old Chariot, which takes place right in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, so it's a little close to home. The actual location of the story is in 1.2. We read this in class together, so if you link up with a assistant teacher or a parent and you want to read it with a parent, that is totally fine, because I read it to the class. So if you want to do this by having it read to you, that is totally acceptable, because it's the way that we did it in class. It's 5 pages. It is a good read. Then I need you to get ready for our novel. We're going to get right into reading The Great Gatsby. So last year you read Fahrenheit 451, and then you would have read a second text. Some of you chose Lord of the Flies, some of you chose Absolute True Diver Part-Time Indian, some of you chose Jenna Fox during remote learning. Well, this year, we're getting right into it. We're going to read a lot of books this year. We're going to read The Great Gatsby, The Things They Carried. We're going to read The Other West Moor. We're going to do a play called Death of a Salesman. We're going to do some short stories, some poetry. So we've got some work ahead of us. So because of that, you have a novel reading assignment as well. The first assignment is 10 pages in The Great Gatsby. That's assignment 1.4. And that has a companion as well, which is a double entry journal. So instead of reading guide questions this year, you are answering the same questions each time, which is a summary, finding a literary device and doing a direct citation, a direct quote from the text, and explaining how that literary device can create meaning. Choose one character to take extensive notes on during a reading assignment, and then write something unusual or interesting. You're going to do this for every reading assignment during Great Gatsby, so the questions will never change, which gives you a little bit more agency, a little bit more choice over what is interesting to you about the novel. Also, means you have some more responsibility. Okay, bear with me. One more thing to show you on the classroom stream. It's not going to be updated right now, so this is why I feel comfortable throwing this here in the end. But that is 1.3, which is material. There's a note sheet that comes along with it, so this has been attached, and an overview of our major characters in this novel. Great Gatsby is a very complex novel, but it's also very concise. Uh, it's a small cast list, but they're very complex characters. So you'll need to spend some time understanding their biographies because that will help with the comprehension. Their biographies are here in this Google slideshow, but what I'm going to do later this week, go ahead and take that down, is I will go through that slideshow in another lesson much like this for all students so that you can take notes off of it. So when that video posts, know that that's what I want you to open up and take notes on. Why is there so much? It's because the first time that we have a remote class is not until September 10th. So there's a week now where you have some time that we shouldn't sit and wait for the freshman days to go by. We should do something with that time. And of course, available, Mr. Gum is available. Your case managers and support teachers are available to get you through these first assignments. There are a few of them, but they're all small. They're a taste of all the sorts of things that we're going to be doing now that you are no longer a Roots of Thought student, but an American Dream student. Really looking forward to working with you again this year. See you soon.